I have standards when people depict rape in media.
Mhm.
I am not going to, like, hold somebody's hand and say thank you for putting this stuff in media at all. Me Too became a big thing in 2017, the last time a rapist was president. That was 7 years ago. We are way past that point where we should be, like, giving creators a round of applause for even remembering that sexual abuse even happens and putting it in, like, their media. If it's done badly, and I think that it's done badly, then I'm gonna say that it sucks.
Once I wish you would lie and say
I love you,
you do.
but not in the way that you want me to.
As a work of art, it is a bizarre choice in this adaptation to take themes of sexual assault out of Odysseus's story with Circe and Calypso and insert them in Penelope's story.
This sounds like a thing I don't need to say, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Rape is literally, like, the worst thing you can ever experience in the history of your life.
Mhm.
Like, it is the worst thing. I know that some people might, like, argue about that, but I don't care. It is, like, the worst thing that somebody can ever do to you.
Yeah.
And so if you're gonna bring that up, you should have that in your mind and think about how you're presenting it, and I don't think that that happened. And, like, Jorge was a younger dude when he wrote a lot of this musical. He's 26 now, and he was 21 when he started, and so it's very possible that he just doesn't know this stuff, or doesn't have people around him that brought that sort of stuff up. I'm not saying that he's a horrible person at all for not knowing that. 'Cause it felt very trauma porny to me, which is, like, where I feel like people are, like, overly describing things to be super traumatic about it.
Yeah.
Um, the way that, especially the parts when he's describing what it would be like when they would actually do it. They, like, not only talk about doing it, they describe what it would be like when they're doing it. And that was the stuff
Yeah.
that made me have, like, intense, like, full on, like, body flashbacks at times when that happened to me.
Choice to take the themes away from Odysseus's story and to insert them in Penelope's story where they weren't there in the Odyssey is bizarre. It's bizarre.
Mhm.
Because if we were going to skip over the handmaids, the servants, then we could have just skipped it. We could have just skipped it. But you know why we couldn't skip it? Is because in this version of the Odyssey, Odysseus is no better than the suitors
Mhm.
in the actual Homer Odyssey. And people also when I started saying that, people were like, "Oh, but he made some of the same choices." Scylla, let's talk about Scylla for a second because that was deliberate and very cruel. So Scylla was supposed to be a choice between I lose 6 men and I lose my ship. And it was not supposed to be an easy choice. With him going into the lair of Scylla and saying, "Let's hand out 6 torches," he literally picked out men to die. That's way, way, way different. Um, we look at the sirens. Um, if it were Homer's version of the sirens, him taking them out and being like, "I'm not gonna let you do this to any other sailors," would have made so much more sense. But the sirens in this version are sympathetic almost because
Mhm.
their powers are so weakened that Odysseus doesn't need to be tied up to communicate with them and not be drawn into the water.
Mhm.
He like his men are able to grab them, like, their powers are nerfed so much to the point that, like, if we're talking video games, they're like low tier level, like bogeys.
Yeah.
So,
Gouges eyes. That is, unless you choose to die.
And especially, like, the fact that he beats up Poseidon. What do you mean he beats up Poseidon when they're in the ocean?
yeah.
He beats up Poseidon with his own Triton when they're in the ocean? What what what?
I will eventually
What?
watch this, but I just can't eat. Like, right now, this just sounds like way too off the rails that people were defending that. Okay.
I expected going into this for there to be themes about sexual abuse, and I was, like, excited about that because I like watching media that have themes about things that I've experienced to see how they depict them. It is so weird. That's the only word I can think of. Just super weird that he took out all of the scenes about sexual abuse with Odysseus with these other women and then shoves in a scene about abuse where he has to like rescue his wife from a gang rape attempt. Like literally not even just one rape, multiple men wanting to take turns raping her. Like
Yes.
the most aggressive kind of like rape scene you could even ever describe. And so it's so weird that he did that because it's like, yeah, what about male victims though? Because Odysseus is one. Like the original myth of Calypso with Odysseus, she basically drugs him, like roofies him every single night for 7 years. And he sits on her island on the beach crying, begging to go home to his wife, crying every single night about how much he wants to go home to his wife, knowing that she's just going to drug him again and he will have no choice but to literally lay there while she rapes him. That is the story of Calypso and Odysseus in the Odyssey. And so the fact that it is so scaled back that all you really get is her like trying to get him, but you're not even sure if she ever actually even did anything with him. And in the second song that I made videos about, the I'm Not Sorry for Loving You song, he says a line in there saying like how he loves her and but that he needs to leave. And I was just like, and, like, I know that somebody somewhere, whether it was someone that said this to you or someone that sent this to somebody else, I can't remember anymore, said something like, "Well, maybe because Jorge plays Odysseus, he didn't wanna act that out." The thing that drives me insane about the trauma porn sort of scenes about sexual abuse is that you don't have to do that for
Hmm.
people to understand what is going on. I bring this example up, you're gonna have to deal with it that I talk about it all the time, but Medusa on Percy Jackson, they she never says he Poseidon raped me. She never says that at all. She makes it very obvious without having to actually say it that that's what she is doing.
I would have worshipped her that way for a lifetime. In silence. But then one day, another god came and he broke that silence. Your father. The sea god told me that he loved me. I felt as though he saw me in a way I had never felt seen before. But then Athena declared that I had embarrassed her and I needed to be punished. Not him. Me.
I guess the thing that is so wild about Epic is that it would be very easy during like the Get in the Water song when he's trying to convince Poseidon not to kill him, for him to be like, Calypso abused me. And for him to say something to get that idea across to Poseidon to try to get him to leave him alone. To be like, I already went through this for 7 years. I am already at like the lowest that I could possibly ever be. Do you need to kill me when I already went through all of this for all this time? It's
Hmm.
like it'd be so easy to put that into the story. And that's the part of this thing that is so weird is that even at the end, like they have a song about the bow and arrow challenge like that they do in the Odyssey. They
Hmm.
do the bow and arrow song and then they go into the crazy rape song. And so I'm like, you didn't even need to do the crazy rape song because the bow and arrow challenge is like right there. Why not just do that? Why not just do that and skip over the crazy rape song
Yeah.
and and then just like have him attack the suitors in because they're trying to kill his son. Like you could have him see the two suitors that are trying to kill his son and then him end up just killing all of them when they all try to stop him from stopping the ones that are trying to hurt Telemachus or something. You could do that without ever bringing up the gang rape.
Yep.
And so it's like even with that it's like it's be so easy to just skip over that that I don't know why they didn't or like I just don't know. And there's such a lack of um like, representation, I guess, of, like, male victims in, like, a lot of mainstream media. A lot of times when it is in mainstream media, it's kind of, like, downplayed, like, I don't watch the show, The Boys,
Mhm.
because that seems like something that would be too triggering for me, but I did hear that there was a story this past season of one of the characters on it being, like, raped or sexually abused at least, but it was played for laughs. Like, they played it like you're supposed to be laughing at it, and I heard about it because I'm me, and I saw videos from, like, other people who talk about sexual abuse and things like that a lot that were upset at the show, and were calling it out for framing men being raped as a joke, when that's, like, one of the biggest reasons why men don't come forward about abuse or don't even realize that they even were abused, because of how people talk about it like that. And so, like, this depiction of the Odyssey could have made a huge impact. Like, I am, like, forever dedicated to Percy Jackson for a lot of reasons, but Medusa is, like, a special other extra reason that the TV show is always gonna mean a lot to me no matter what happens with it going forward because it gave me this thing. I'm like, the like, quotes that Becky and Rick said about Medusa and about rape victims in general, like, literally, like, make me cry when I read them because they're exactly how we feel, and the way that they talk about us in those quotes are so full of empathy and understanding and, like, wanting us to feel powerful and wanting us to feel good about ourselves and things like that, and it's such a nice way to talk about people that have been through things like that. And so if Epic did a story where Odysseus was abused in that way as, like, a man, like a grown man, and shown, like, what that is like, that would have been such a huge that would have meant so much to a lot of people that usually don't get any of that. And
Yeah.
it would have just and I just don't understand why, because I think that honestly would have made the story better.
Mhm.
Um, I know I said that last time, but I do think it would have made the story better because it would have made it understandable why Odysseus goes so off the rails
Mhm.
if he was going through that,
Yeah.
because you do go off the rails when you get raped, and so that would be understandable if he and even him, like, needing so desperately to get home to his wife and, like, turning Penelope in almost like this deity version instead of, like, an actual person would also make more sense. I feel like every critique I had about Odysseus would make more sense if you actually put in that part of his characterization that wasn't there. I know that somebody in your comment section said that you're not allowed to talk about the Calypso Odysseus stuff in the official, like, Discord, and so that makes it real confusing
It's
that
so confusing.
that's so confusing that people in that Discord can't talk about not being happy with how he depicted Calypso and Odysseus, but everyone is in there talking about the stuff with Penelope. Age of, like, 18 to, like, 33, I didn't tell anybody that I had been raped before. I tried to convince myself that I hadn't, also, but I, didn't tell anyone else ever. And I
Yeah.
literally told no one, and then suddenly when I was 33, I just started telling people out of nowhere. And so for all those years, I was in a lot of fandoms and stuff, and I always just think about people like me and who are in fandoms like this, and I want it to be a comfortable experience for them. I want them to feel like because it's one of those things of you never know who's experienced that before because we don't talk about it
Mhm.
a lot. And so, like, people have messaged me who can't talk about it publicly, things that they've experienced. And if you do that, I will literally never tell anyone what you say, not even her. Like, I would rather die than tell somebody something like trauma details that you tell me. I will never tell anyone ever. And anyway, but it's just like that I want those people to, like, see these conversations that people are having about sexual abuse and abuse victims and feel like they belong, and I after the last couple days, I generally don't know how they could feel like they would in this fandom.
That's kind of like a final note or criticism of the writing that I want to give to. So For people that haven't watched our content very much, if anyone's stumbling upon this, that's just an epic person. I included part of the Odyssey in my own wedding ceremony. I wrote my own wedding ceremony because I am not religious. I wanted something that felt true to me. And I was like, what is a sacred text I can point to? The Odyssey.
You almost named your son after
Aside.
Astyanax.
Yeah. So, well, that's more the Iliad, but still.
Mhm.
Like with the Odyssey, I had this one professor give me a lecture. I think I even mentioned this last week, but I had this one professor give me a lecture once about one word that's used, and the word means like mindedness in Greek. And Odysseus uses the word to describe what an ideal marriage blessed by the gods would be to Nausicaa when he washes up on Phaeacia, I believe. It's where she's from. And Penelope, everything she does in the Odyssey just shows this from the weaving, which I know is left in Epic, but it doesn't hit the same when you cheapen it at the end with "I'm a Spartan woman, all of this murder was just flirting to me." The actual bow contest, which they started but didn't finish, was a nod to her cunning because she knew that that bow was so hard to string, nobody else would be able to do it.
Mhm.
And then the bed was also kept in. But again, like that is such a big deal of a test that it's like the final one, you know?
Mhm.
And so their bond is that they both have this like cunning tricksterness to them, that they both can think their way out of situations. And they both have been the entire time they've been separate. To cheapen it to, I just like you because you murder people.
Yeah, she deserved better. I think she should have been in more of Epic. She shouldn't have only shown up at the very end. I don't think that doing that to her should have ever even been on the table as something you could even entertain because she deserves much better than that. And I think that Odysseus acting so violent for the rest of Epic downplays her
Mhm,
because she's more like an idealized version of a wife than an actual person with the way that he talks about her. He puts her up on this pedestal and describes her as like this perfect being that nobody ever is instead of like who she actually is.
mhm.
And so that on top of her saying it's okay that you killed everybody, literally everybody. And he says, like, "I killed everybody," when he's telling her about it in, like, song version. It's like, I don't think that it's right that she forgave him like that and said that it was fine or, like, downplayed it at all, and it's like, he's, like, not the safest person for you to be around because he did all of this stuff, and the memory of you wasn't enough for him to, like, hold himself back, and especially because she says that it's okay
Mhm.
at the end, and so it's like, so you, like, are okay with this stuff? You, like, let him do this and just excuse it away? Like, that's not a good setup for a relationship either.
And if we can point to some of the same events that lead into those themes, because I know that some epic fan would be like, well, Penelope did a lot of those things that you just said. It's not in the same spirit. It's really not.
Mhm,
Like, and that's, I mean, Scylla is another great example. It's not in the same spirit. That decision was not made in the same spirit.
mm,
I did want to like this. I went into
mhm,
this thinking like it'd be fun to have something. I am not the type of person that has to read every single thing or look at every single thing about my special interest. I'm not that kind of neurodivergent. So I usually don't dive into Greek story retellings as readily as some of these people seem to do. But I dove into this one wanting to like it because Odysseus and Penelope are one of my favorite relationships. Yes, including the original like plots of he was with Calypso for 7 islands and he sought comfort in Circe for a year even though it was originally coercion. You know, like
mhm,
I can still love their romance. I used that line about what a perfect wedding is, blessed by the gods in my own wedding ceremony. Like, I like Odysseus knowing he's not perfect, knowing that this baby fictional baby that I fell in love with while I was pregnant and wanted to name my child after that he is partially responsible for killing in most versions.
Mhm.
So like it was never, I want this to be perfect. I want Odysseus to be a perfect person. It has to have a happy Disney ending. It has to be exactly none of that. It was never any of that for us.
I thought that I would enjoy it, and when I didn't think that I was gonna be, like, obsessed with it or anything, but I thought it would just be, like, something fun,
Yeah.
to compare the stuff that we've especially because because Sea of Monsters is coming out, which is the Percy Jackson version of the Odyssey. If you read
Mhm.
the Sea of Monsters book, it was just an easy way to, like, compare those things to something else of
Yeah.
the Odyssey. And I thought that I would just enjoy it and it would be something fun to talk about and then we could like move on. I didn't expect to like not like it. I was surprised by how much I didn't like it.